Check out Paddy Power's new and exclusive Cash Card Plus, available to use online, at ATMs or even down the local. Paddy Power, you beauty!
Hello and welcome to the Monday Postcast. I'm Maddie Plough and I'm joined by Nick Watts on the sofa. We've also got Tom Stiegel and Paul Binfield on the line. Lee Mottershead did an excellent job when I was out of the hot seat last week, but this week we're back and we're going to talk about the Arc, Chantilly. We've also got Newmarket and the Cambridgeshire. We've got all sorts to cover, and obviously we've got an awful lot to cover from the weekend as well, looking back and reflecting. We're going to crack on straight on with the Arc, really. And, you know, we've had this news recently that Cracksman's out. I'm going to get all your opinions on that. But first off, I want to get this out of the way and say, Enable, is it a penalty kick? And then if you had to have a bet, who would your bet on it be? Because we all know Enable's the best horse in the race. So I'd find it a bit pointless us just sitting here saying how easily Enable's going to find it all. But what can you tell us, Watsy, about the Arc for you?
I wouldn't say it's a penalty kick for starters. I don't think any Group One should be described as such. Maybe she had one at York last time, and that was a Group One. But I think there is more depth to this race than we possibly feared.
Good.
At one stage.
I'm so glad you're saying that.
And you know, I just read a few things on Twitter and the like this morning that there might be a bit of rain around. Ground might be on the soft side for Chantilly, which throws another kind of, not an unknown because Enable will go on it, but it brings others into the equation like Order of St George, who we mentioned last week, as a potential place contender at the very least. So that might make it a little bit more tricky. I think all things being equal, I think Enable's bomb-proof. I think she handles any ground. The only thing you'd worry about her is she coming to the end of a long season. But I remember a few years ago thinking possibly the same thing about See the Stars, and he just went over to Longchamp and hacked up. And as long as she is still at her peak, she's the one that's going to take all the beating. Nice
and simple, nicely done. You mentioned that rain. I was thinking we were going to mention Highland Reel and Ulysses, but perhaps they would be slightly inconvenienced by that rain if it came. Yeah, they definitely would be, and it would bring Order of St George massively into the equation. Tom, you were very keen on him last week. If there was a bit of rain around in Chantilly, that would probably increase, wouldn't it?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, the point about Order of St George is he was third last year, and people are judging his chance this year on that. But if you look at the form he came into the race last year, he was beaten by Wicklow Brave in the RS St Ledger beforehand, and that was miles below his best form. I mean, he just wasn't in any sort of form when he came into the Arc last year. Subsequently after the Arc, he was beaten in the champion. You know, he's just a much better horse now than he was at this stage last year. So if you're judging whether he can, if you're saying he only could finish third last year, I think you're barking up the wrong tree. I think he's a totally different horse. I think soft ground suits him. I think he's got the pace for 1.5 miles. I remember in my youth backing a horse called Westerner, who'd won the Ascot Gold.
Oh, Tom, I did the same.
Yeah, and he was second to Monsieur. I can't remember. Hurricane Run.
Kieran got a charmed run up the rail. I was hoping somebody would block him, but they didn't.
Exactly. And everyone was saying exactly the same about him. He didn't have the pace, and he was second to a monster in Hurricane Run. Now, Enable. She'll probably win, but I think at 12-1. And I've got to mention me old pal Capri. I'm getting a bit sick of everyone telling me Capri's no good. Every time he runs.
That was a wicked ledger, wasn't it? Yeah. It really was a very good St Ledger, I think.
Absolutely. And every time he runs, it's the second horse. In the Irish Derby, it was, poor old Cracksman didn't get a good run. Wings of Eagles got injured. In the St Ledger, it's, Crystal Ocean's going to be a brilliant horse. Stradivarius, he's going to win the Gold Cup. No one ever talks about Capri. He's beaten them both. I think he's the best 3-year-old on form. Now, there's potential. The best 3-year-old colt, I should say, on form we've got at the moment. I think there's the potential for others to be as good as him. But if you're looking strictly on form, he's beaten Capri, he's beaten Crystal Ocean. That puts him right in there. If it's soft ground, I think that'll suit him. I can't see why he wouldn't run well either. So they would be my two. I mean, obviously, Enable's the one to beat. Like Nick says, we always go on about horses having hard races and not not being as good at the end of the season. But we've Golden Horn to Groot. They keep coming back and keep proving that theory to be a bit silly. So I'm not going to use that as a stick to beat her. I think she'll probably win, but I think the two O'Brien horses, Order of St George and Capri, are the dangers.
Nicely done. Before we go over to Binners and just get some prices on those ones we've mentioned, speaking of Order of St George, how would you compare this year's Arc? Obviously, it's hard to look beforehand to last year with that form in mind. Do you think this year's is better?
This one's much better, yeah. But as I say, I'm not judging Order of St George on last year at all.
Yeah.
So therefore, that's a bit of a red herring, but and definitely in terms of quality, last year's was pretty low quality, wasn't it, compared to this year's? So that means he's got a bit to find. I just think if it's soft ground, I think he'll run really well.
Okay, Binners, can you give us a quick refresher on those prices for us?
Yeah, we are 5 to 6, which is very competitive in the market for Enable. 13 to 2 Ulysses, 8 to 1 Winter, 10 Order of St George, Bramato and Highland Reel, and it's 14 bar, and we went non-runner, no bet at 10 a.m. this morning on Monday.
Excellent. Okay, well, I don't think Winter will run, will she? Can you see that happening, Watsy?
No,
Possibly.
maybe if it was softish ground, I'd say no. I'd say the Opera, she coped with it at Goodwood and stayed a mile and 2, but I think a mile and a half is a different story. And yeah, I mean, Galileo can do amazing things with his progeny, but you've got to remember on the downside, she's out of a Wokingham winner. I'd say a mile and 2 would be the way they'd go with her, although they've been, made noises last week otherwise, didn't they?
Okay, Binners, before we go to our competition, who would you pick in the Arc? One at a bigger price, maybe?
Well, I think Enable probably will win, but I think 5 to 6 is far too short in a competitive race like this. I agree with Tom. I love Capri. I tipped him up for the St Ledger.
We love a bit of after timing on the Postcast, don't we?
Yeah, well, no, listen, it wasn't after timing, it was in print, but anyway.
There we go.
It
I got
doesn't matter.
told.
I love Capri. I think 14 to 1 is a massive price. My one reservation would be it does back up a bit too soon after Doncaster, but to be fair, when you win an Irish Derby and a St Ledger and you're 14 to 1, that's a nice each-way price.
Yeah, I think I know who I'm going to be backing in a minute. Right, it's competition time now. Every Monday we give listeners and viewers the chance to win a free £25 or €25 free bet. All you have to do is answer the upcoming question and tweet your answer using the hashtag Postcast. Today's question is, who won last year's Prix de Triomphe? The winning entry will be revealed in Friday's Postcast. All the very best.
That's quite hard, isn't it? Normally they're really easy. I've forgotten already and I only said it about 3 minutes ago.
Shh.
Oh, sorry.
You'll ruin it.
Paddy Power are offering money back as a free bet if the horse you back finishes 2nd, 3rd or 4th to the SP favourite in 2 races today and every day this month. Max £25 per race. T&Cs apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Right, welcome back to the Monday Postcast. Tom couldn't remember who won last year's Arc, but we've got last year's Abbey winner running again this year in Marsha. She looks one of the star names on display. We've also probably got Batash and I think Signs of Blessing too. Who wins this? What's it? Give you one chance.
I'm going to give another chance to Batash because I think what I've seen on the balance of his form this season, he looks very good. York last time obviously didn't go according to plan. If you watch that race from when they got to the paddock right the way down to the start, you wouldn't have been very happy at all because he just didn't seem to be taking the preliminaries very well. He was worse down at the start. And just nothing worked out for him. I was expecting a bad run then after what I'd seen because he can be a bit of a hothead and he showed his bad side that day. And he just tore off a bit too fast. And, it's always inevitable when you bill a race as a match, as people did between Batash and Lady Aurelia. One side doesn't turn up, and it was Batash that really let the side down then. But interesting, I've been listening to what Charlie Hills has been saying. He said there's some reason why it's to do with the way the horses have to be ferried across the track at York or something along those lines that Batash didn't like, or he was worried it wasn't going to suit him, and his fears were confirmed. He said about Shanti that it's much more straightforward to get the horse into the paddock, down to the start and to the race. And for a horse that lives on his nerves a little bit like Batash, that could make a huge difference. So,
do you not worry about the travelling to France? Obviously, maybe might not be as easy for him as if it was just,
I'm not so worried about the travelling as much as what happens when he gets on the course and all the razzmatazz and the people and the crowds and all that kind of stuff. So if he can get him down to the start nice and safely, hopefully we might see a performance more akin to Goodwood, where he thrashed Marsha that day.
Take Covers come out and won us again twice.
Yeah, so the form's strong. He looked exceptional that day, and I'm a forgiving type of person, Maddie, and I'll forgive a horse one bad run, and he'll be a better price this time, I'm sure.
Yeah, you have to be a forgiving sort of person when you're subbing my work anyway. The mistakes I make. Tom, what about this Prix de l'Abbé for you?
God Almighty, I hate the Prix de l'Abbé. What a bore. I'm sorry to be so negative, but they put it on at 12:30 or about 9 o'clock in the morning for a reason, because no one's interested. It's a 5 furlong sprint. We've seen all these exciting. A million times before. It's the least interesting race of the weekend. There's like 5,000 good 2-year-old races. There's a Cambridgeshire and Air Gold Cup.
Right, well, hurry up then. We'll get your pick and then we'll get on to those races.
Let it run. Nick's exactly right. Brilliant. Couldn't care less who wins this.
Okay. Binners, prices, what can we get about Batash, Marsha, Signs of Blessing and co?
Well, Marsha's 2-1 favourite, Maddie. Batash 9-2. Signs of Blessing 7-1. Caravaggio 8-1, and it's 10-1 bar.
I'm not sure Caravaggio will go. I was just speaking to someone about this beforehand. Nick, seeing as you're the only one who actually wants to discuss this race, and Tom's just...
That's harsh. I do like it. I do like it. It's such a shame because, and I think Watson would agree with me. It's a 5 furlong sprint. We've seen them all run against each other most times. We've got this is the best weeks flat racing of the year. We've got so many good racing. This is my least favourite. I'd love to see Signs of Blessing win myself. I'm a big fan of his. I think 5 furlong suits him perfectly. But it's a draw race. It always is. Shanty's slightly different from Longchamp, where it's always been a massively sort of up the rail. But we've had so many weird winners of it that I've sort of lost a bit of faith in trying to find the winner of the Abbey. And I'm looking forward to, there's so many good races that, this will be decided by the draw.
It's right on the end of the card this time as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
and they put it at the end, have they? So everyone can go home before watching it.
Rather than... in there a load of Arabian races and a handicap. Is that going to happen? Does anyone know? Because I know it was mooted as a possibility, but I didn't know that was now what was happening for definite.
I think it depends on the size of the arc field, but I think the Abbey is still going to be running near darkness, and as Tom said, a lot of people might have gone home by then.
Yeah, the French don't have any interest in sprinters, do they? So they either put it when it was at Longchamp. Do you remember it used to be at 11 o'clock in the morning, and you can sort of forget it. It used to be like 3 and 4 hours before the arc. And now they put it right at the end. I mean, it doesn't float my boat. But look, Marsha and Batash are really top class, so it'll be good to watch.
Yeah. No one's really mentioned Marsha. She could confirm that York form, even maybe if
she won it last year, didn't she?
Even if Batash produces his best, is he going to really beat her, do we think?
Not necessarily. No. I mean, look, I don't think the ground's an issue for either of them, really. But I think Marsha would probably prefer the ground a bit quicker than Batash. Batash doesn't seem to care. But Signs of Blessing's pretty good. He's playing on home turf. I think 5 furlongs is his trip. I think if you watch the Foray again, it looked like he was going to win by miles, with a furlong to go and then finish 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
I think he's a chance. And, I don't know if they plan on running Blue Point. I think the ground will be an issue for him. But the rest are much for muchness, aren't they?
Yeah, I can't get Signs of Blessing's first run of the season out of my head when he gave all that weight away to Profitable, etc.
Exactly.
He was brilliant. Binners, a quick last word from you on this?
Yeah, I'll never forget Marsha, a freelance journalist, Terry Redhead, said to me in the press room after the Palace House Stakes that Luke Morris gave him that as his horse to follow for the season, and of course he didn't back him that day. But Signs of Blessing, I like him. I'm with Tom on that one again. And his form figures at Shaunty are 2-1-1, so that could be significant.
Okay, right. Sticking with the Shaunty theme, just going to ask each of you for a horse to follow in France over the weekend. Maybe Le Marteau, maybe Happily. Anything else catch your eye, Nick?
Yeah, I love the Cadran. Tom probably hates it.
No, I like the Cadran.
Oh, you like it?
All races but sprints.
Okay, Vazirabad just touched off last year by Quest for More, I think.
It's a boring one, though.
That is a dull one. Come on, Watson.
Solid favourite. Come on. What more do you want? Vazirabad, get stuck into it.
To be fair, it probably will win. I think they're going for 3 Prix Royal Oaks or something like that, haven't they? He's just a good horse. Tom, eye catcher for you?
Polly Dream.
Yes.
Dream. Freddie Head's a 2-year-old that beat Lawrence very easily in the Calvados at Deauville. Very much looking forward to seeing her in the Boussac.
Okie dokie. Binners?
I'll probably go for Rhododendron in the Prix de l'Opera, Maddie. She was 12-1. She's into 9-2 now. Wasn't a big price in the French Oaks when something seemed to go amiss. And she had a nice pipe opener in the 1 mile Matron Stakes, which could set her up for this longer distance at Shaunty.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think Rhododendron could be one to watch as well. We'll be back in just a moment.
Paddy Power are offering money back as a free bet if the horse you back finishes 2nd, 3rd or 4th to the SP favourite in 2 races today and every day this month. Max £25 per race. T&C supply. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.
Okay, welcome back. Now, Tom's going to start to get a bit excited because we're going to talk about these Newmarket 2-year-old races. We've got the Middle Park, the Cheveley Park, the Royal Lodge. There's absolutely shed loads of quality horses engaged at the moment. Tom, we'll kick off with you, and whichever one you want to cover really first, and then we can see about how they bet. But I know you're a big fan of these juveniles, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's just potential, isn't it? What we're trying to find is horses for next year that we can all get excited about. They're all fantastic races. You were talking about a horse in the Royal Lodge that you liked before we came on. Roaring Lion for John Gosden, and Qatar. It's one of the few horses he's got for Qatar. I think he's very interesting. I think Aidan's going to have lots and lots of runners in there, isn't he? You think
that Royal Lodge looks an excellent race. I had a quick look, and I'm really excited for that. Obviously, we yet to see who's going to turn up eventually, but loads of potential.
Yeah, there's loads in there. Aidan's got loads of interesting couple from Mark Johnson as well. Frankel horse out of Attraction, LR Cam, who was really impressive on his debut. It was only a small little race at I can't remember where it was now. York, yeah. But the time was really good. I mean, he's already got a top speed in the hundreds, which is pretty hard to do on your debut. Herculean did the same. Another Frankel out of another Group 1 winner, African Rose. So it's a tremendous race, and I can't leave out. And the horse I like most of all is Massar for Charlie Appleby. I was really impressed with him at Sandown.
That surprises me.
I think he's going to be a superstar next year. I really think he's a Derby horse in the making. He's just a big old thing, and I think Ascot happened too soon for him. I like him. I think he's really good. I know. I spoke to them about him before Ascot, and he was Charlie Appleby.
Chesham, behind September, yeah.
Charlie Appleby said he's the best 2-year-old we've got, and he's the best my horse I'm most looking forward to running all week at Royal Ascot. He didn't win. He had some winners there. Sound of Silence won the Windsor Castle, etc. So I think he's just going to be a good horse going forward. I think this is a much harder race, obviously, than the one he won at Sandown, but I think he's good, and I think he's got the best form.
Yeah, well, I think they said about Massar that they think he'd definitely be the best 3-year-old.
Yeah.
As a 2-year-old, but they might have 2-year-olds now to surpass him, if that makes sense. But I'm surprised. I'm glad to hear some positivity. I'm just not sure about that Solario, and like you say, maybe it's just that he's a horse for next year, but I've just not been overly impressed, to be honest. Right, Watsy, what about you? Anything in the Royal Lodge or anywhere else?
Yeah, no, there is one in the Royal Lodge. I'm a big fan of Nelson.
Yes.
I actually put a bit of money on him for the next year's Derby. I think after he won his third start, and then he went to Leopardstown on Irish Champions Day, and he won a Group 3 there. And interesting family. It's
another Frankel, isn't he?
I know, he's Frankel. He's a rare Frankel for Ballydor. They don't have many. They don't really need him, I suppose, with Galileo.
They have like Rostropovich as well, I think,
he's
don't
in
they?
there as well.
Yeah, and like I said, a bit of a tainted family because he's closely related to US Army Ranger, my old favourite who gets worse and worse with every run. And you kind of forget now that he did once finish second in the Derby because he gets beaten all ends up wherever he goes.
We all forget, Nick, but you certainly don't.
No, I never do. So I don't know what to make of Nelson. Visually, he's been impressive. He's looked good. He's climbing the ladder. He's like all of Aidan's that they show massive progression from run to run. Maybe longevity might be an issue for him if he takes after US Army Ranger, but at this stage he looks a pretty good 2-year-old, and he won very easily at Leopardstown last time out, so he would be the one for me.
What about can I put in my boring breeding fact of the week, because I like doing those.
Go for it.
Isn't it interesting? We got 2 Grade 1s over 6, Group 1s over 6 furlongs, not a Franklin sight. We got the Royal Lodge over a mile. We got 4 of them in there. He is absolutely a stone cold. He put so much stamina into his progeny.
Yes,
they're not quick horses. None of them change gear very quickly. Obviously, there's exceptions. Queen Kindly and a couple of the fillies are pretty quick, but most of them stay really well. And it's interesting that he's got 4 in there and not 1 in the Cheveley Park or Middle Park.
Okay, Binners, have you got any prices on this Royal Lodge, just so we can see?
We do indeed, Maddie. Yes,
excellent.
We go 2-1. Nick Watts' fancy Nelson favourite. 11-4 Massar for Tom Segal and myself, actually.
Well done, Binners.
There you go. I followed you all day today.
I know, at least someone is.
Unbelievable. 3-1 Elecam, 5-1 Herculean, 8-1 Roaring Lion, and then it's 10 bar, including Rostropovich on 10.
I like that 8-1 Roaring Lion. He was really impressive at Kempton last time. Cheveley Park now. We'll have a quick look at the Middle Park after this as well. But Clemmy, who we've not seen since Newmarket, I believe. Heartache, who won the other day. Threading. Binners, to you first. Betting for the Cheveley Park, please.
Yeah, Clemmy, interesting one. I think she might be a sprinter in time, but 13-8 favourite for her. 3-1 Heartache, 9-2 Threading, 6 Happily, 7 different league, and then 10 bar, including Frankie Dettori's ride Betty F.
She's an
Talking of
interesting
Betty
horse.
F, I've got to correct myself. She's a Frankel too,
Yes,
and I
yes,
forgot.
she is.
She's a Frankel, and she's running in the Cheveley Park.
I
So
like a man who admits a mistake, Tom.
Well, unfortunately, it's happening all too often these days, Bidders. When you get to my age, you can't remember where yesterday was. What happened yesterday, let alone 3 hours ago.
Couldn't remember last year's ARC winner, could we? Right. Cheveley Park, then. Obviously, it depends on what Aidan throws over, but would you side with Clemmy, Tom?
No, not necessarily.
No.
I think she's pretty good. But I'm not sure Aidan's fillies are quite as good as his colts. I mean, the ones that she got beaten in the Mayhill, they got beaten by Althea and yesterday in the Group 1. The Science, Happily and Magical keep running against each other, but
I like Happily.
I like Happily too, because I think she's going to be a totally different filly on faster ground. But on what we've seen so far, I mean, she only just beat Mary Tudor, didn't she, in the race before? And Mary Tudor got lapped yesterday. And so I'm not sure the form of the Aidan O'Brien fillies is that good. I think Clemmy's probably on form the best one. I'm not sure she's a superstar. She only beat Nailati a length and a half, didn't she, at the July meeting? Yeah. She's not, the form isn't like way off the chart. So while I get it, I mean, if you look at the Racing Post ratings, I think she's 4th or 5th in this race. So, I wouldn't be rushing to back her at 7-4. I think Threading's very interesting for Mark Johnson, obviously, after her Lowther winner, which I think she'll like Newmarket better than their Heartache we've got in there. Not convinced by her over 6 just yet. Have to admit, we've got Different League, who won the Albany. And I quite like Jeremy Nasida's Frankel filly Betty F if she runs. I'm not sure she's going to run.
These ones that don't run over 6 furlongs.
Exactly. He's also got Take Me With You. I'm not sure which one he's going to.
I think he is going to run Betty F.
I like Take Me With You. I
think that might run in the Rockfell. One's going to run in the Rockfell. One's going to run here. I think. I'd like to know which one runs in where.
She had a gallop last week, Tom, and this is the intended race for her.
Binners is putting us all to shame today.
No, Binners is spot on. That was report, and I think she's probably quite a good filly. I think he's got lots of good 2-year-olds this year, and they've been running really well. So I'm a bit of a Jeremy Nasida groupie. So if he runs Betty F in there, I might have a look at her at a 14, whatever she is, Binners.
What price, Binners?
10-1. She was 16s until we got that press release from Race News, and very bullish from Jeremy Nasida, and she's now a 10-1 shot.
Okay, excellent. What's he give you a quick word on the Cheveley Park?
If Happily was going to run at 6-1, I'd be quite keen on her, but I can only assume she's not. And
I don't think
that's why Clemmy is quite short. I don't know, maybe I'm just getting a bit weary of it all today, but it's like some of Aidan O'Brien's horses, you get, you think, like Tom says, you think, well, that was okay, but it wasn't brilliant, it was just all right. But they just come back and they win. And I can see Clemmy doing the same. She hasn't blown me away so far. She's beaten on the first 2 starts, so maybe she's not exceptional. But sometimes you just get a sense of foreboding about these things. And I could see him winning the Royal Lodge, the Cheveley Park and the Middle Park, because I think he's got Sioux Nation in the Middle Park, hasn't he? And he'd have a good chance. So sometimes you can, or I'd certainly try to take him on in the past and look for reasons why these horses, who weren't uber impressive the time before, won't win, and then they just go and do it. So
yeah, the one thing I would say about Clemmy is I know they were very, very keen to run her before they took her out of that big race. So maybe the sort of prep run logic, I mean, I'm sure he's got a plenty ready enough, but I'm sure he would have loved to give her a run, so that might be a potential concern. You mentioned the Middle Park. We've got a lot more to cover, so if we just quickly, everyone mention one horse that they like in the Middle Park. I'm a real big fan of Hey Jonesy. We mentioned it before we went on air. He finished, I think, close up in a big sales race when he was drawn on totally the wrong side at York. I'm not sure he'll run, but I think he's a superstar to watch. What about you? What's the
I mentioned Sioux Nation.
Sioux Nation, yeah.
Boring as it is, because there's another Aidan O'Brien horse, but that's the way it might go.
Got the form in the book. Tom, Middle Park selection from you?
I get your Hey Jonesy, but I'm a massive Sioux Nation fan. I think he's the best looking 2-year-old I've seen this season by a mile.
Is he another scat daddy, is he?
Yeah.
He is, yeah. I just think he's a bit of an old monster. I think there's plenty more to come from him, and I don't think we've seen anything like the best of him.
Okay, Binners, Middle Park, have you got any betting and quick selection from you?
I have, yeah. It's 3 Sands and Marley, 100-30 unfortunately, 7-2 Sioux Nation, 6 Raja Singh US Navy flag, 13-2 Bar. Your Hey Jonesy is 10-1 Maddie. Sioux Nation for the lads, 7-2. I like, unfortunately, for Carl Burke. I've been impressed with him. His last 2 starts in France, which he's won, and he's 100 to 30 shot.
Yeah, and he's
Yeah.
in terrible form, Carl Burke, as well, isn't he?
Absolutely dreadful. Right, we'll touch on that a bit more in a moment. Now we're going to talk about the Betfred Cambridgeshire on Saturday. Tom, kicking off with you, I believe you've tipped Thundering Blue and El Hayam anti-post. Give us a quick flavour of why you've picked them, and are they still the ones to side with?
Love the Cambridgeshire. Absolutely love the Cambridgeshire. It's like a 9-furlong sprint. It's all about class. It's all about the ability to travel. Hopefully the ground won't be too bad there. Love Thundering Blue. Interesting. It just slightly concerns me that he's coming back in trip, whether he'll quite have the pace, but he has got so much class. I mean, I thought he won with a stone and a half in hand at Sandown last time, and I think there's no way on earth that he can't win off his current mark. I think he'll be rated in the hundreds, next year at some stage. So I think he's got a massive chance. One of the stories of the season really has been the resurgence of Sir Michael Stout. I think Ulysses and all the other horses, but he's also had a really good run with the handicappers, starting with the Lincoln. Fidawi, loads of them have run well. El Hayam at Sandown. I think he's got a massive chance. If you go back to the York run in the soft ground, he was the only horse to make up any ground from the back. I think he's got a really big chance too. And I have to mention Saturday's winner, Barocco, because I thought he was sensational on Saturday. He's got a £4 penalty. I presume he's going to sneak in at the bottom of the weights there. I think he's 36 or 35 now, so he's going to get in. I think he's got the perfect run style for the race. I think you need to travel. You need to be able to stay a little bit further too, and I think he's got a massive chance too. So it's not original. It's not. I'm not breaking any. I'm not splitting the atom. Yeah, I'm not splitting the atom for sure. But I think those three have massive chances.
Well, if they win, Tom, that's all we ask. Binners, what prices can we get Thundering Blue, El Hayam and Barocco and the rest?
Well, it's Thundering Blue 8-1 favourite, Maddie. 12 Big Country Barocco Naval Warfare, and then 16 Banksy Chelsea Lad El Hayam, and 20 Bar in one of the most competitive handicaps of the season.
Yeah, I like a horse called Adieb, who was really progressive until he ran at Goodwood. He maybe just didn't like the ground on that occasion. What do you make of the Cambridgeshire?
This is going to sound like I haven't done any research and I'm just tipping favourites, but I do really like Thundering Blue, actually. And Tom said it all already. I was really impressed with that win last time. We'll get an early look at the form. I think Monarch's Glen, the runner-up, runs at Goodwood on Wednesday. So, a big run or a win from him will be a good pointer. But comes to the racing form, and although it's a big field, I'd agree with Tom. This is actually one flat race I don't mind betting in, because I think, if there is a potential class angle in there, then, more often than not, they'll go close or win. And so I do fancy Thundering Blue. I can see Barocco. I was at Newbury on Saturday, and he did win very impressively. He just swooped down the outside and won easily. But whether he's the type to follow up, I'm not quite sure. He can often find trouble.
One thing I'd quickly want to mention about Thundering Blue is that Newmarket and Sandown, in the latter stage of the race, when he's hit the front, he's sort of veered. He's a bit of a wayward old thing. Newmarket in the dip, does that worry you at all, guys? Does that worry you? What's he?
No, just put faith in the jockey, not to let him see too many open spaces, and hopefully he'll swoop in the last 100 yards or whatever, and he
won't matter what he does.
He won't be worried about the wide open spaces in Newmarket.
Okay, Tom, you equally as unbothered?
I think he'll be so far clear he could run round, turn round, do a pirouette and still win.
Excellent, we love that confidence. Now we're going to have a quick look back on the weekend. Anything worthy of putting in your horse tracker? I've got one to mention that I've already mentioned, to Watsy. But first, Saxon Warrior obviously won the Beresford. Then we had James Garfield, Who Dares wins for the Cesarewitch maybe. And then we had all that action, including Quiet Reflection coming back. I'm going to kick off with the Beresford winner, Saxon Warrior, who was very, very impressive. John Lennox asked, how impressed was Tom with Saxon Warrior, and is he a 2,000 guineas winner or contender?
To admit, I was quite surprised at how impressed I was with him. I wasn't expecting him to be quite as good as he was on Saturday. I thought it was a pretty tough race for a once race maiden against 2 or 3 horses that had really solid form in soft ground. I wasn't expecting him to be as impressive as he was. Do I think he'll win the 2,000 guineas? No. Do I think he's got a shot of... Well, I think he'll definitely run in the Derby. Does he got a shot of winning it? Yes, of course he has. He's clearly very talented. He's by Deep Impact. They all stay very well. I would imagine that the Derby will be the plan for him. If he's good enough, if he can do an Australia or a Camelot and run in the Guineas, then I'm sure Aidan will aim him at that too. I personally see him more as a Derby horse, but he's clearly got a lot of ability. The problem is there's, you could name about 20 from Aidan's yard that you could say have a similar sort of profile as him. I mean, he's clearly got to be. I mean, he's got to be right up there with them having won the Beresford, and Capri won the Beresford. See the Stars won the Beresford. So it's one of the top 2-year-old races in Ireland. So yeah, you got to have him right near the top.
I think that was Aidan O'Brien's 7th or something ridiculous like
7th
that.
on the row. Yeah, I think he's won more of them. I think he's won about 12 of them.
Yeah, 7 consecutive.
Yeah.
Binners, what price Saxon Warrior for the Guineas in the Derby quickly?
Well, Saxon Warrior, we did put him in a 6-1 favourite for the Derby from 20 immediately after the race, Maddie. But we've gone out to 8-1 today. We've reassessed, but still, market leader, and he's 10-1. 10-1 from 20 for the 2,000 guineas.
Okay, right. Well, we mentioned Carl Burke in absolutely dreadful form, of course. He had Healthy and Quiet Reflection, who I think it was just brilliant to see her back. I'm a big Quiet Reflection fan. Tim Atherton asks, 6 furlongs on soft ground. Who would you go for, Harry Angel or Quiet Reflection? We'll chuck this one your way.
I'd still stick with Harry Angel, though. It's good to see Quiet Reflection back, and if she heads to Ascot as well, Caravaggio heads the same way. We're in for an absolute thriller of a race. I'd stick with the impression I've had all along that Harry Angel is just a little bit, marginally ahead of the others. It doesn't need to be big gaps in sprints. But, if all 3 arrived in peak form and they all ran their race, I would fancy Harry Angel to come out on top. OK,
Tom? What do you make, Quiet Reflection?
I think she's very good. I'm not sure. I know she won the, Commonwealth Cup last year. I'm not sure Ascot's her track, to be honest. Thought that was by far her least impressive performance. She only scraped home from Catchy, was it?
Yeah.
I think she's miles better on proper soft ground. Ascot never really gets that soft. I wouldn't fancy her to beat Harry Angel, but I'm a big Caravaggio fan back at Ascot. I think he's got a big chance. I think he's too big a price. I really do. I think it was a massive step back in the right direction at wherever he ran last time, the Curragh last time over 5. I think he's got, he's 2 from 2 there. He's beaten Harry Angel at Ascot. I can't see why they should be so wide in the market.
Okay, I've got one more Twitter Q&A question, but first I'm going to go to each of you. Just any impressions you got from the weekend or a horse to stick in your tracker. As I say, I've got one I'm really excited to mention. Any observations from you?
Yeah, definitely. I've got 2. I've got one from Newmarket, Magic Lily, 2-year-old of Godolphins, who won very nicely. She's out of Dancing Rain, who won the Oaks a few years ago. You're always meant to tread carefully with Godolphin horses turning 3 because they always seem to go missing in the classics, but this could be one to arrest that. And I was present at Newbury on Saturday, and it's good to see another angle in the Derby apart from Aidan O'Brien Galileo horses, and John Gosden might have got a really good one, maiden winner called Emirati, who's by Dubarry out of ZZ Top, very well bred. Got a mile and a half pedigree, should get a Derby trip. I think Binners, what's he, about 20-25-1. Very, very impressed with him.
Okay, can we get prices on Magic Lily and the other horse Nick mentioned? If you've got them, Binners, would that be too much to ask?
Yeah, sorry, Maddie, I was just turning off my phone. What race are we looking at
That's
here?
normally me who does that.
I know.
It's great to be not the one that's got their phone on.
I know.
So what do you want? Magic Lily for the 1,000 guineas?
No, it'd be Magic Lily would be an Oaks, and Emirati would be the Derby one, I think.
Okay.
Are you happy with Emirati staying the Derby trip? I'm not. I'll tell you why. I thought he was too keen. I think he'll need to settle down quite a lot. I thought he got a bump early on, and then he was a little bit keen, I thought, through there. He looked to me like a miler, but then I could be wrong.
I wondered that, Tom, but then I looked at his odds before the race, and he was long odds on, and I just thought it was a case of Jim Crowley getting the job done.
Maybe. I'd just be slightly... it's a second race. He could easily settle down by then. I just think he's got a keen way of going, and I would be worried about him in the Derby. I'll tell you one horse I liked. He didn't actually win at Newbury on Saturday. You were there. In the first race? I know it was a slower division, and I know they probably weren't. There wasn't an Emirati in there, but I like the second horse, Sam Gold. Thought he got sort of trapped out on the wide outside, and then as soon as he switched him back in, he sort of really picked up well. He's got I think he'd probably be one of those Roger Varian horses that will be contesting group races by the back end of next year. I mean, I think he's probably a miler, but I think he's a little bit better than he showed on Saturday. I think he should really have won that opening maiden. Okay,
sticking with the Newbury theme, I'm just going to jump in there. On Friday, a horse called Orange Suit won, half-brother to Simple Verse and Even Song. They weren't really expecting it. I think he's a big horse. He'll make a 3-year-old, but he was given a brilliant ride by Sean Levy, and I think he's one to watch for the Hannons. Just quickly before I ask a Twitter Q&A question, I'm really happy to be asking Binners. Have you got any prices on those Oaks and Derby for Watsy?
I haven't got anything for the Derby, Maddie, and I looked up the 1,000 guineas rather than the Oaks, but...
that was my fault.
Listen, I can give you some news from the Curracundra, Brendan Duke, whose decision to run Warm the Voice was well justified when he ran third in the Beresford. He may go to the Killavullen Stakes now, subject to Mrs. Bolger's approval. And my horse to follow, the Brogy Man. Brendan was right. Looks like he needs 7. He finished third over 6, and he goes to the final at Naas on 15th of October with a fighting chance.
Excellent, thank you very much. Now, before we go quickly, lots of people asking me about the upcoming National Hunt season. Cue a few groans there from the flat fans. The King George is shaping up to be an excellent race. Sizing John might bite, maybe Q Card in there as well. A lot of them chasing that £1 million bonus. Any early thoughts on the National Hunt season, Watsy, maybe specifically the King George?
Yeah, might bite or win. He won't win the £1 million bonus because he's not going for it, I don't think. He's not going to be going to Haydock, but...
no.
Yeah, I mean...
Sizing John will be, though.
Yeah. I mean, he was electric, wasn't he, last year at Kempton? He did everything right bar the last. And I don't know, I think this quirkiness thing with Mike Bite is a bit overplayed, to be honest. I watched him at 8.
Did you watch him in the RSA?
I watched him at Aintree, and he held off Whisper all the way up the home straight. He didn't lack resolution then. He would have won by a fence at Kempton had he stood up. Any horse can fall at the last. And... you know, what he did at Cheltenham, he set a frantic pace. He got tired, he was lonely, he started wandering. But as soon as another horse came past him, a bit of company, he ran on.
He'd done it before
he
at
ran
Cheltenham,
on
though.
Arrow straight, and he got back up to beat Whisper. So I think it's overplayed. I don't think he's that quirky. I think he'll win the King George.
Excellent. Tom, you'll probably be with me in that these Scorpions are deadly buggers sometimes.
They are very strange, but I hope Watsy's right, because believe it or not, I'm on at 40-1 for him to win the King George. I'd love him to win the King George. I do think, though, that if all these turn up, I think it'll be the best race in ages, won't it?
Yeah.
Thistle Crack, we forgot, we didn't even mention
My
him.
boy.
Last year's winner, Sizing John, the Gold Cup winner. Duvan's in there, and the horse I quite like, which no one's talking about, and please, Watsy, don't say Jack Adam. Whatever you do, don't mention Jack Adam.
I thought that's what you were going to say.
Fox Norton. I think he's crying out for 3 miles. I think that's going to be the key to him. We've spent you spend all these time watching horses like Sizing John, run over 2 miles, run over the long trip, get beaten by Altior and Duvan and sort of. He's a very, very similar profile to Sizing John had last year, before he started winning Gold Cups and Irish Gold Cups and Punchestown races. He is crying out for 3 miles. I don't know if he's going to run in this. Obviously, it'll depend on Thistle Crack.
I think they might.
But I think they've got Sizing John. They've got the same ownership. They've got Sizing John as well. So it depends. I think if Sizing John doesn't win at Haydock, he probably won't go to Kempton.
Right.
Because I think they'll probably keep him in Leopardstown for the Grade 1 over Christmas there. And therefore, that might let Fox Norton in. But I think if Sizing John wins at Haydock, which he'll be probably odds on to do, then whether Fox Norton runs or not. But just as a horse to follow for the season, I wouldn't mind having I have had a few quid on him to win the Gold Cup, because I think he's a stayer. I think he's a stayer, and I think he's got a very similar profile to lots of horses, Imperial Commander, Sizing John, all those type of horses that people are against them because they don't think they're stayers. But
it's been proved time and time again, though, hasn't it? You need that class to be able to run well over 2 miles to help you,
They can run fast, and so therefore it helps them jump and helps them get into rhythms, and that's the key to jump racing. So I would be interested in Fox Norton for the season.
Excellent, right. You've got me really, really excited now.
How about that? That was pretty good, wasn't it, for on the spur, not having discussed jump racing for 20 years.
Loved it. Right, don't forget to join us on Thursday for the football postcast, and then I believe I'm back on Friday doing the tipping postcast, when we'll take a closer look at all the fabulous weekend's action. Don't forget to join us then. Rate, subscribe, etc. Us on iTunes, and we'll see you then.
Check out Paddy Power's new and exclusive Cash Card Plus. Available to use online, at ATMs, or even down the local. Paddy Power, you beauty!